Live from Utah's CW30. ABC4 News at 7 starts now.
Good evening. Thank you for watching ABC4 News at 7 on the CW30. I'm Rosie Nguyen. We begin with our top 7 stories at 7. Then we're going to go in focus on tonight's featured topic, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Let's get right to it. We begin with developing news out of Davis County. The lightning-caused Legacy fire continuing to burn at this hour. Firefighters say it's burned roughly 300 acres so far. ABC4's Jason Nguyen joins us live from Farmington with why officials are concerned that this fire can change dramatically. Jason.
Yeah, Rosie, we just found out that the fire is now heading towards us. The wind just shifting here, so you can see all the smoke here. Inside of it is ash. Firefighters say this is starting to head straight towards these homes. As Chris starts to pan over here towards his left, you can see all that smoke rushing through. Firefighters, they're getting ready right behind us over here because they say that 300-acre fire has grown, and the change in wind direction making that wind go to the southeast is causing some major problems because it can affect these power lines just over towards the right of your screen. Now over here towards the left, you can see firefighters, they're getting ready. They're putting down actually hoses so that they can make sure that this stuff right over here to our left doesn't catch on fire. Now there is a dirt road here that they're hoping can block some of this here, but firefighters tell us here that they are deeply concerned with these changing winds, that the fire could come approaching houses. So we're gonna stay here and monitor this fire because right now they're just gonna let this fire burn, Rosie. So we're gonna have a full update tonight at 10 o'clock. Till then, I'm Jason Nguyen, live in Farmington, CW30.
All right, thank you, Jason. Also in Farmington, a terrifying morning for a family who police say was held hostage by an armed suspect. That suspect is dead after being shot by officers. Investigators say 31-year-old Joseph Mannard was wanted in Layton for aggravated crimes. A family member called police on him when he was in Clearfield. He ran and then led police on a chase, then hijacked a car at gunpoint and continued to run. He eventually broke into a home in Farmington and took a family of 5 hostage.
He just was, I think, trying to get into whatever house he could for whatever reason. He displayed very aggressive behavior to law enforcement.
The standoff ended around 9 o'clock this morning. A Salt Lake City police officer fired at least 1 round. The suspect later dying at the hospital. Investigators won't release details about the family that was taken hostage, but they say it appears that they are doing okay. According to the American Civil Liberties Union of Utah, officer-involved shootings led to 19 fatalities in 2018, the deadliest year on record. The Logan Police Department haven't had an incident in about 6 years, and they're now investing in new technology to keep that streak going. The latest tool is the Bola Wrap from Wrap Technologies. It shoots a Kevlar rope with hooks on both ends, which wraps around suspects and temporarily immobilizes them.
Doing whatever we can do to minimize the necessity for force that causes injury or force that potentially can cause death.
Now, if the sergeants find the Bola Wrap useful in the field, all officers may soon start to carry one too. A warning tonight from Hurricane Police to parents after a 21-year-old man was allegedly involved in a sexual relationship with a 13-year-old girl. Officials say the two met on a social media dating app that requires users to be at least 18 years old. They say it's important to have conversations with your kids about protecting themselves from predators and online safety. Police advise that there are also applications that help parents monitor their children's devices, and for adults that are using these dating apps to be vigilant.
As an adult, someone over 18 on that dating app, to try and verify how old the person that you're dating is, especially if you intend to have any kind of sexual contact with that person.
Now in the state of Utah, no child under the age of 14 can give consent to any sexual act. Now to the latest in the fight against COVID-19, where some Republican states are slamming President Biden's plans to get more people vaccinated. The president rolled out a plan affecting 100 million Americans, ordering all businesses with more than 100 workers to either require their employees to be vaccinated or to get tested weekly. That vaccine mandate now also applies to 17 million healthcare workers, plus 4 million federal government employees, as well as contractors. This as the CDC releases 3 new studies on the effectiveness of the vaccines.
Those who were unvaccinated were about 4.5 times more likely to get COVID-19, over 10 times more likely to be hospitalized, and 11 times more likely to die.
Here at home, the Utah Department of Health reports 2,189 new cases of COVID-19. The 7-day average of people testing positive is at 12.2%. Currently, there are 529 people being treated in the hospital. 21 more people died from the virus in the past 24 hours. So far, the state's administered more than 3.3 million vaccinations. Intermountain Healthcare will be putting a pause on non-urgent surgeries next week, as they say they're beginning to feel the brunt of a dramatic increase in COVID-19 hospital admissions. Their president says COVID-19 patients are taking up half of their hospital beds, and there's not enough caretakers of those who are hospitalized with COVID-19. They say 87% are not vaccinated. Doctors also say the situation is dire, and they're now having to take drastic action to preserve public health.
Our epidemiologic projections suggest that we're not even at the worst part yet. We believe we're going to need about 40 more ICU beds and about 70 more general medical beds in the very near future. And guess what? We just don't have them.
13 hospitals ranging from Logan to St. George will begin pausing non-urgent surgeries on September 15th. And finally, big news today for Cougar fans. BYU is going to the Big 12 Athletic Conference. The Big 12 officially extended membership invitations this morning to BYU, the University of Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston. It now gives the university a potential seat at the table to better make the college football playoff.
We are thrilled to be joining the Big 12. But Cougar Nation, we didn't reach the destination today. The journey will still continue. Together as the Big 12.
BYU's invitation to join the Power 5 conference comes on the heels of the Big 12 losing Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. Their teams outside of football will still compete as a member of the West Coast Conference this year and next year. Still ahead in focus tonight, the 20th anniversary of 9/11, a reflection on that tragic day and how the deadliest terrorist attack in the world history continues to impact the lives of people all around the country.
And taking a live look outside here in Salt Lake City, some clouds still hanging around, but what does that mean for our weekend? I'll have more coming up in Utah's most accurate forecast.
Time now for Utah's most accurate forecast with Cesar Cornejo, Weather Rate certified 10 years in a row.
Taking a look at our There For You weather headlines tonight, we're expecting to still see those isolated storms hanging around. Still a bit of that lingering heat for us. Again, less smoke thanks to that monsoonal flow, and then we'll see what the weekend holds for us, and it's looking to be a little spotty for some areas. But taking a look at storm tracker radar as we continue into this evening, look at that, we see storms still hanging around, with one of them actually being severe warned. It's a little bit towards that Farmington, I want to say, area, Bountiful. It's including here, so it is including the Legacy fire, bringing in 60-mile-an-hour winds, and it's until 7:15. So for the next few minutes, we'll continue. That can be on the bad side, as we just saw with Jason, that the winds are starting to push the fire a little closer towards homes, as it seems like. But again, we still expect to have this marginal risk for severe weather continuing through this evening and into tonight. So we can still expect to see some thunderstorms hanging around for parts of the Wasatch Front and northern Utah. Looking at Salt Lake City's hourly forecast for the next few hours, temperatures slowly drop back down into the 80s and 70s as we go into the overnight hours, but storms are still possible given that we have all of that moisture still to work with. As we continue to look at smoke overnight, you can see that there's not much of a heavy plume anymore, and it really starts to dissipate thanks to that southerly flow still blocking all of that smoke out towards the west. And how long does that last? Well, we continue to see that the high pressure system still moves over to the south and east, bringing us that southerly flow that also contributes to some shower activity for us tomorrow. Should it affect some of the games? A little towards the earlier part of the afternoon and maybe even early evening, but by the time we get to game time, pretty smooth sailing for us. Looking at Sunday, we're a lot drier, so not really expecting to see much else than that. And take a look at the regional forecast for tonight and tomorrow. We're expecting to see that, again, shower activity still hanging around, and we'll have temperatures around the 60s and 50s for us for our overnight lows, 80s and 90s for us going into our highs. Looking at St. George's 7-day forecast for the next few days, teetering that 100-degree mark. Some chance high elevation showers are still possible on Saturday, but again, not really much else than that. In the Wasatch Front, a little bit on the wet side for Saturday, and then by Sunday, we continue to see drying conditions for us going into Monday and even throughout the rest of the week. Plenty of dry conditions, temperatures hanging around the mid-80s, so we're back towards average for the next few days. And if you want to stay ahead of all the weather happenings, well, download the Pinpoint Weather app on your smart device using the QR codes on the screen or through your app store. Over to you, Rosie.
Thank you, Caesar. Coming up, Utahns reflect on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. ABC4's Rick Aaron brings us the stories of first responders who went to Ground Zero to help in the search and recovery. Welcome back. Even though the 9/11 attacks happened 20 years ago and 2,000 miles away, they still have a profound impact here. The tragedy killed 3 Utahns on that Tuesday morning, with dozens of first responders flying to New York to help dig through the debris. ABC4's Rick Aaron reports on how people here are remembering and reflecting on that dark day.
Construction workers at Salt Lake City International Airport paused their labor for a sunrise ceremony commemorating the events of September 11th, 2001.
And how you felt the day the world stopped turning.
Meanwhile, in Sandy, 3,031 American flags wave in the breeze at the Utah Healing Field, each one representing a life lost in the attacks. 3 of those flags represent Utahns. 78-year-old Mary Alice Wallstrom of Kaysville and her 48-year-old daughter Carolyn Bugh were passengers on American Airlines Flight 11 that struck the World Trade Center. 26-year-old Utah State University graduate Brady Howell was killed while working at the Pentagon. Their names are forever etched in the 9/11 memorial. With the wreckage at Ground Zero still smoldering, Utah Task Force 1 sent 62 rescuers to dig through the rubble for bodies. Unified Fire Department Captain Mike Greensides was one of them and says he knew the air he was breathing was potentially hazardous.
They said it's a combination of rotting meat, the most stinkiest garbage can you can ever imagine, and a really stinky garbage fire is what it smells like. And I'll never forget that smell. And so we know there's a lot of different stuff happening.
Unfortunately, that toxic air would eventually take its toll. His Task Force 1 colleague, Salt Lake City Fire Captain Robin Pilcher, died of 9/11-related pancreatic cancer in 2016. And his good friend, Chris Cage, died of cancer 1 year ago at the age of 63.
We've had others who've had prostate, who've had testicular cancer. We've had another person has brain tumors going on. I myself have had kidney cancer, and last year on May 20th I had my left kidney and a large tumor removed.
4 Utah search dogs were also part of the recovery effort, including Cowboy and his handler Dave Richards.
I think about what he thought we were doing. You know, he didn't know the trade centers had come down. I mean, he just showed up to this big pile of concrete, and we hadn't done anything like that before.
He doesn't have gloves and knee pads and a hard hat and steel-toed boots. He just has what God gave him, and he's out there giving his all in conditions without a respirator, working his little butt off.
Years later, Cowboy also died of cancer. Now we remember the sacrifices of all the 4-legged and 2-legged heroes, as well as all the victims of a tragedy that continues to unfold 2 decades later.
And that was ABC4's Rick Aaron reporting. Coming up next in Focus tonight, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. A reflection on that tragic day and how the deadliest terrorist attack in world history continues to impact the lives of people all around the country. Hey Jeff, this is Rosie. Can you hear me?
I can, Rosie. How are you?
Oh, good. Thank you for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Hey Jeff, so I realize we have a lot of questions to get through and not a lot of time to do them. Do you want to keep your answers shorter, or do you want me to skip questions if we run out of time?
I will keep them pretty short, okay?
Okay, let's do that. All right, we're in commercial break right now. When we come back, I will do a short intro to you. I'll go straight into Q&A, and then at the end, I'll say, Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. Feel free to respond to that, and then I'll toss us to break.
Sounds good.
All right, see you soon. Welcome to our In Focus discussion tonight on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, the day when 19 militants of Al-Qaeda carried out the deadliest series of coordinated terrorist attacks in world history on the U.S. Nearly 3,000 people died, with an additional 25,000 who were injured. Even 2 decades later, the impacts of that tragic day are still being felt, experienced, and lived to this very day. In our first conversation, we will talk about the residual effects faced by first responders who were there at ground zero. Joining us now live via Zoom is Jeff Dill, founder and CEO of the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. Jeff, thank you so much for spending your Friday night with us. Welcome back to the show. Let's start with the data. We know that nearly 3,000 people died in the 9/11 terrorist attacks. How many were first responders, and do we know how many survived or are living with the life-changing impacts to this day?
Well, it's a well-known fact that 343 FDNY firefighters lost their lives that day, plus numerous officers from the Port Authority and the police department, the New York Police. But what we don't know is, the amount of survivors, because as was in Richard's report, there was thousands of first responders that went to the pile to help out FDNY, and so that is pretty difficult to gauge. But what we do know is that, and from our data, since we're the only organization in the United States that collects and validates fire and EMS suicides, we've been doing that for 11 years, is that the impact has been detrimental to many across the United States that are at their pile, meaning that not only the physical aspect of cancer, dying from cancer, but the mental health, where numerous have taken their lives because of that.
Now, you say that cultural brainwashing plays a role in how firefighters and EMS deal with emotional issues. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, it's a term I coined many years ago. Cultural brainwashing means is that we put this uniform on. This is how we are expected to act, and that's brave, strong, courageous, give help, don't ask for help. I handle all issues on my own. And when you're challenged in your personal, professional life regarding issues such as depression or relationship issues, addictions, the job, from what we see and do, and we're expected to handle it on our own, it becomes virtually impossible. And so therefore we see so many of our brothers and sisters struggle with these issues. And who expect us to act that way? Well, our brothers and sisters we work with in the firehouses, the communities we serve, as well as the traditions of the fire service. So and when we look at it also, society is culturally brainwashed, because if I was to ask you, Rosie, when you hear the term firefighter, what words come to your mind? And it would be very like everyone else, brave, courageous, heroic. And so to live up to those expectations is very difficult.
And I love what your organization does is that, we don't have to disconnect brave, courageous with mental health, right? Or vulnerability. Like, those things can go hand in hand. They don't have to be separate. Now, we know that suicide has been a big concern among first responder mental health. Why do some firefighters choose to take their own lives?
Well, our data, I have validated 1,657 of these tragic events, and I still unfortunately have 11 more to validate for 2011 that have come in over the last couple of weeks. But when we look at our data, and I validate it by, when we get confidential reports, I contact the chief officers of the departments. And so I've personally spoken to about 1,620 chiefs to collect this data. And the number one known reason is marital and family relationships. And people want to say it's PTSD, and it absolutely plays a role. But the marital relationships, because of the way that we're supposed to act, be strong, brave, don't talk about things, it becomes a detriment. And at times, unfortunately, we bring our anger to home.
Now, Jeff, what is internal size up, and why should every firefighter do that on a daily basis?
Internal size up, once again, is a phrase I coined. What it means simply is that we need to ask ourselves on a daily basis, why am I acting this way? Why am I feeling this way? And to listen to others, because they see us a lot better than we will ever see ourselves. So we have to learn to listen to our support at home, as well as our brothers and sisters we work with, trying to understand our emotions on a daily basis.
And Jeff, as someone who works on the betterment of first responder mental health, How are you reflecting today on the 20th anniversary of 9/11?
Like everyone else, I was on shift that day. I worked for a department outside of Chicago, and it amazes me how that's been 20 years, and yet it still seems like yesterday for my brothers and sisters that we saw and struggled, and for our 343 that lost their lives. I will always remember.
You've been hearing from Jeff Dill, founder and CEO of the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. Jeff, thank you for being a part of our conversation tonight. We appreciate you so much.
It was my pleasure and my honor to be here, Rosie.
We'll be right back.
So should I be off of mute now?
Okay. It's kind of inside my shirt right now, so it's really hard. Oh. No. Not right now. Okay. Hi, Jenny. This is Rosie. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Rosie.